And now, BX Forever presents another RPG deep dive.
Welcome back, adventurers. We're diving deep into a classic D&D module today, Horror on the Hill.
Ah, yes, a classic.
You listeners sent this one in, and I have to say, it's got everything you could want in a good low-level adventure. We're talking dense forests,
Treacherous cliffs,
mysterious caves.
maybe even a dragon or two.
Oh, definitely dragons. Can't forget the dragons.
For those who haven't had the pleasure of experiencing a D&D module, think of it like a pre-written adventure path, ready to be brought to life at your table.
Yeah, it's got maps, characters, storylines, the whole shebang. Sort of like a choose-your-own-adventure novel, but with dice and, well, a lot more imagination involved.
And this module is designed for those just starting out, character levels 1 to 3. It's almost like a crash course in world building, all packed into one thrilling adventure.
Right. It's fascinating to see how much detail goes into creating even a small-scale fantasy world like this.
Absolutely, it's inspiring.
So consider us your guides through Horror on the Hill. We'll be mapping out the key locations, the challenges, the secrets, so you can really get a sense of this place. Think of it as your own personal survival guide. But for a fantasy world full of, all sorts of crazy creatures and dangers.
And maybe a bit of treasure, too, if you're lucky.
Oh, right. Treasure. Can't forget the loot. Okay, so let's set the scene. Our adventure begins in this frontier settlement called Guido's Fort. It's right on the edge of civilization, perched precariously on the banks of, well, the River Shrill.
Aptly named, I'd say.
Yeah, it's described as this wide, fast-flowing river, and it's what separates the fort from the ominous hill.
Quite the obstacle, that river.
Oh, yeah. To even get to the hill, you need to hire a fisherman to ferry you across, and that'll set you back a cool 20 gold pieces.
Not exactly pocket change for a starting adventure.
No, not at all. To put it in perspective, a night's stay at a rather dingy inn only costs 1 silver piece. So that ferry ride is a significant investment. It really emphasizes the significance of the journey, right? It's not something you just casually decide to do.
Exactly. It sets the stage for an adventure of, well, significant import.
And even before you set foot on the hill itself, you start hearing these rumors and whispers swirling around Guido's fort, adding to the sense of mystery and danger surrounding the hill.
It's a brilliant way to build suspense and get players invested in uncovering the truth.
The module actually has a table of 8 different rumors that the adventurers might hear.
Some true, some false, all designed to pique their curiosity and set them on edge.
Yeah, like there's one about a fire-breathing dragon living in the caves beneath the hill.
That one I can confirm is absolutely true.
Buckle up, adventurers. But then there's another rumor about the hill being a base for ogres who trade slaves.
Ugh, a chilling thought.
Thankfully, that one's false. But it definitely paints a picture of the kind of dangers people associate with this place.
It plays on those primal fears, the monstrous, the things that lurk in the shadows.
Okay, so let's say you've made it across the River Shrill, survived the ferry ride, paid your 20 gold pieces, and you're finally standing at the foot of the hill. It's a 400-foot climb to the top, and the module describes it as this wild, untamed wilderness. Think dense forests, treacherous cliffs, and these mysterious steam vents that hiss and spew, just adding to the whole unsettling vibe.
It paints a vivid picture.
Oh, it does. And the module even says it's a place where no one has ever returned.
Well, except for the adventurers, of course.
Right. Except for them. So, good luck with that.
A bit of dramatic foreshadowing, perhaps.
Now, one of the first things you'll notice when you start exploring the hill is that movement isn't just a simple matter of walking wherever you want. There are rules, and those rules depend on the type of terrain you're traversing.
It's a clever way to make the environment feel more real, more challenging.
Yeah, if you're sticking to trails or clearings, you can cover a decent amount of ground each turn, like 300 feet.
But as soon as you go off-road, things slow down considerably.
You're limited to 75 feet per turn, and you have to take these mandatory rests after each square you travel.
It emphasizes the physical exertion, the toll it takes to navigate this wilderness.
And then there are the cliffs, which can be major obstacles unless you have a skilled thief in your party.
Even then, it's a risky proposition. One bad roll could send you plummeting to your doom.
Yeah, it's a great example of how the game mechanics tie into the narrative and the dangers of the environment.
And speaking of danger, we have to talk about wandering monsters.
Whoa, yeah, the ever-present threat of something nasty lurking just around the corner.
The module has this wonderfully detailed table of potential encounters. And it changes depending on whether you're traveling by day or by night.
So during the day, you might run into hobgoblins,
Ogres.
killer bees.
Those bees are particularly nasty.
Oh, yeah. Poisonous stings.
And let's not forget the queen bee. She's a force to be reckoned with.
But then at night, the encounters get even more unsettling. We're talking ghouls.
Giant bats.
Skeletons.
Even Neanderthals.
Creepy. And the module makes it clear that these aren't just one-time encounters. You might run into the same type of monster multiple times. It really keeps the players on their toes.
It reinforces the idea that this is a living, breathing world full of dangers that persist.
Okay, so let's say you've made it past the initial challenges, avoided those pesky, wandering monsters, and you're ready to start exploring the hill itself. The module's map is our guide here, and it highlights all sorts of points of interest, each with its own unique challenges and potential rewards. Waterfalls, caves, haunted graveyards, even a mysterious statue.
A smorgasbord of adventure, wouldn't you say?
And some of these locations, they really stand out, even just from the descriptions in the module. Like, there's one called the Glade of the Magical Berries. Sounds idyllic, right? Peaceful meadow, a clear pond. But then you find out these berries have healing properties because some long-forgotten cleric spilled a potion of healing on them.
Bit of accidental magic, if you will.
It's like stumbling upon a natural pharmacy in the middle of the wilderness.
It adds a touch of whimsy, doesn't it, to an otherwise dangerous landscape.
Then there's the ancient statue. It's this creepy humanoid figure carved from granite located at the top of this steep hillside. It used to have valuable jewels in its eyes, but those have long been looted. It's like a reminder that other adventurers have been here before.
Some successful, some not so much.
And then we have the Cavern of the Bats. Giant bats, as you might have guessed. But here's the catch. They only occupy the cave during the day. So if you're looking for a temporary hideout, it's best to visit at night.
Tactical thinking is rewarded in Horror on the Hill.
Oh, absolutely. And if you're looking for a challenge with a view, there's this narrow ridge that offers this breathtaking vista of the surrounding landscape,
But it's only 20 feet wide.
with 80-foot drops on either side.
Not a place for the faint of heart or those with a fear of heights.
Speaking of things to be afraid of, there are two caverns of the steam weevils. These caves are basically natural vents for the geothermal forces beneath the hill. So you've got these scalding bursts of steam to contend with,
And then there are the swarms of steam weevils,
which attack you relentlessly.
and deal burn damage with every hit.
Yeah, those little guys pack a punch.
But then, amidst all this danger, you have the Pleasant Glade. It's this small clearing, flowers, clear water. It's like a little oasis of peace and tranquility.
Perfect for a picnic, maybe?
Assuming you're not interrupted by any wandering monsters, of course.
But then we come to a location that really starts to hint at a larger conflict brewing in this world, the Hobgoblin Camp Clearing. It's not just a random encounter. This is a sign of something more organized.
The hobgoblins here, they're armed, they're organized, and if the players defeat them and search their tents, they'll find evidence that they're amassing supplies for an attack on Guido's fort.
So they're not just a threat to adventurers on the hill, they're a potential threat to the entire settlement.
It raises the stakes, doesn't it?
For sure. Okay, we've explored some of the wilder parts of the hill, but this is where it gets really interesting. We're going to visit a clearing with a rather unique pair of characters, Rosabella and Rosalinda.
Oh, yes. They're quite the memorable duo.
They live in this charming, whitewashed cottage with bright green shutters, beautiful gardens. It seems harmless enough.
Deceptively so.
Because it turns out these seemingly sweet old ladies are actually a powerful cleric and magic user.
Don't let those appearances fool you. They're not afraid to use their powers to get what they want.
And they love to strike deals with adventurers, but they always demand a steep price. They might offer to heal your wounds, for example, but in exchange, they might want the head of an ogre. Or they'll offer you magical items, potions, scrolls, enchanted weapons, but they'll want something valuable in return.
They drive a hard bargain.
Oh, yeah. And they're not above using their magic to collect on a debt. So you have to be very, very careful when dealing with these two. A bargain with them could turn sour very quickly. So we've got these two powerful magic users living in this seemingly innocent cottage. And then, just to keep things interesting, there's also the Cavern of the Ogres, hidden at the bottom of a rocky cliff.
Home to a family of ogres and their goblin slaves.
It's a classic D&D encounter. The module even provides a detailed layout of the cave. You've got a playroom for the young ogres, a well room, sleeping quarters, and of course a storage room where they keep their treasure.
And if you're lucky, you might find the key to a padlocked chest filled with gold, silver, and gems.
But be warned, the ogres are tough opponents and they're not going to give up their treasure easily.
Then there's the Cavern of the Neanderthals, a small tribe trying to carve out a life for themselves on the hill. They're described as curious and peaceful, communicating through sign language.
But they're not afraid to fight if provoked. And they have this sort of rivalry going on with the ogres, which could make things really interesting if you encounter both groups.
Indeed, it adds a layer of complexity to the interactions.
And then we have a location that's just plain eerie, this large clearing that's described as one of the most desolate spots on the hill, mostly bare dirt, scraggly grass. It just has this ominous feeling about it.
It's like a place where something bad happened, or is about to happen.
It's definitely not a place where you want to linger.
And speaking of places you don't want to linger, there's the graveyard.
Part of it lies in that desolate clearing, and the rest extends into the surrounding woods. It's an ancient burial site, once used by the monks who inhabited the hill centuries ago.
And the module really emphasizes the lingering evil that permeates the graveyard. It's a place where the dead don't rest easy. There's a good chance you'll encounter ghouls lurking among the tombstones.
So yeah, not a place for a relaxing stroll.
And speaking of things that are best left undisturbed, there's one more location on the map that we should mention. The Dragon's Escape Tunnel.
Oh, right. A hidden cave that serves as an entrance and exit point for the Red Dragon.
It's not something that players are supposed to discover right away, at least not at this point in the adventure.
But it's a tantalizing hint of the challenges to come. So we've explored the wilderness of the hill, met some of the creatures that call it home, maybe even found a bit of treasure along the way. But the adventure isn't over yet. In fact, things are about to get a lot more complicated.
Because now we're entering the ruined monastery.
A place steeped in history, mystery, and a whole lot of danger. All right, so we're leaving the wilds of the hill behind us, and now we're stepping into this ruined monastery. It's a location that almost feels like a character itself, you know?
It does, doesn't it? The module does a fantastic job of bringing this place to life. You can practically feel the weight of its history, the echoes of its past.
Yeah, and those echoes, they're not all pleasant. It's got this creepy vibe, for sure. And it's not exactly a safe haven either. It's home to all sorts of creatures. Rock baboons,
Ogres,
live goblins,
dire wolves.
even zombies.
It's a good reminder that even though we're moving into a more structured environment, the danger level hasn't decreased one bit.
Okay, so where should we start exploring this crumbling testament to civilization? What catches your eye?
Well, there's one location that's guaranteed to make your skin crawl. The huge pool. It's this massive expanse of water, dark green, warm to the touch.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. What's lurking in the depths?
Giant centipedes, 8 of them, and they're not afraid to attack anyone who gets too close.
Ew, that's not what I was hoping for. I'll be sure to steer clear of any stagnant water I encounter on the hill.
Good idea. Now remember those steam vents we talked about earlier?
Yeah, the ones that hiss and spew.
Well, there's one right here in the monastery, too. It's this wide crevice, seemingly bottomless, constantly emanating heat, and this faint sulfurous odor. Not exactly a place you want to hang out in.
Let's move on, shall we? What else have we got?
Okay, how about this? The tomb. The entrance is marked by these elaborately carved doors, depicting a creature with fangs and claws. Pretty ominous, right?
Oh yeah, very ominous. What's inside? More giant centipedes?
Thankfully, no. It's a network of interconnected rooms, some filled with skeletons armed with short swords and shields. But there's treasure to be found as well. Hidden in one of the tombs is a dagger +2, so it's magically enhanced, giving you a better chance to hit your target.
Yeah, that's more like it. A little risk, a little reward.
That's the spirit. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's still plenty of danger lurking within these walls.
Okay, what else is there? I'm ready for anything.
All right, how about the tangled garden? Imagine this. Dense thicket of brambles and thorns, practically impenetrable. It's like something out of a fairy tale, but with a much darker twist.
Okay, I'm getting Sleeping Beauty vibes, but not in a good way.
And hidden within this tangle are goblin ambushes, just waiting to spring on unsuspecting adventurers. The module even mentions that the goblins have camouflaged their tunnel entrances, so you really need to be on your guard.
So it's like you're constantly on edge, waiting for them to jump out at you, not exactly a relaxing stroll through the garden.
No, not at all. But let's step back from the danger for a moment and visit the Initiate's barracks. This long, dilapidated room once housed the monks in training. Now it's just a shell, filled with the rotted remains of wooden bunks. It really makes you think about the passage of time, the way nature reclaims everything eventually.
It's almost poetic in a melancholy way, like a reminder that even the strongest structures eventually crumble. Okay, what's next?
Next to the barracks is the dining hall, another space that speaks to the monastery's communal past. You can picture the monks gathering here for meals and discussions, but now the tables are overturned, shattered pottery litters the floor, dust covers everything. It's a stark contrast to the lively scene it must have been.
So we're seeing this contrast between the monastery's past and its present, the grandeur that once was and the decay that is now.
Exactly. And speaking of meals, let's head to the monastery kitchen.
Oh, a feast awaits. I'm starving.
Not quite. I wouldn't hold your breath.
No gourmet delights in a ruined kitchen.
Well, there's still 2 large cook stoves and a pantry stocked with dried beans, grain, and stale bread. But the current occupants aren't exactly master chefs.
Oh no! Don't tell me. Giant rats.
Giant rats. And they're not too happy about sharing their newfound pantry.
So much for that gourmet meal. At least we know why the module emphasizes the need for rations and provisions.
Exactly. But there's a silver lining, even amidst the filth and chaos. Hidden within the rats' garbage pile are gems, coins, and even a magical arrow +2.
So it's worth braving the rat horde if you're feeling lucky. All right, what else have we got?
Okay, how about this? The monastic library. Imagine shelves upon shelves of books, scrolls, ancient texts.
A scholar's paradise.
It sounds incredible, but I'm guessing it's not in the best shape these days.
Yeah, I'm guessing those books are a little worse for wear.
Time and the elements have taken their toll. The books have crumbled to dust, the shelves are debris-laden, and the tables and chairs have rotted away.
It's a shame, really. All that knowledge lost.
But not all is lost. Hidden on a shelf, beneath tattered remnants of literature, is an ivory tube containing a well-preserved clerical scroll.
So even in the face of decay and destruction, knowledge can endure. I like that. Okay, what's next on our tour of the monastery?
All right, let's visit the garden and the fountain. It's described as a peaceful oasis within the ruined monastery, with birch trees and a pool of crystal-clear water. And a fountain, of course.
Refreshing. Maybe we can finally get a break from all this, doom and gloom.
Not so fast.
Yeah.
The water from this fountain isn't just refreshing, it's magical. Drinking from it can have a variety of effects, some beneficial, some not so much.
Oh.
You could gain hit points, increase your ability scores, but you could also lose hit points, decrease your ability scores, or even become paralyzed for several hours.
It's a gamble, then. Do you risk it for the potential reward, or play it safe and admire the fountain from a distance? It's like a microcosm of the entire adventure, isn't it? Risk versus reward.
Now let's enter the ancient sanctuary, a grand chamber that hints at the monastery's pagan past. Imagine this vast space with a high ceiling supported by these massive columns carved with the likeness of this hideous god. The floor is smooth stone and surprisingly clean, a stark contrast to the rest of the monastery.
It sounds almost otherworldly.
And hidden within this chamber are 2 secret doors. One leads to an empty room filled with debris, but the other, well, let's just say it's guarded by a rather unpleasant surprise.
Okay, now you have to tell me. What is it?
A pair of ogres. And they're not exactly known for their hospitality.
So, unless you're looking for a fight, it's best to avoid that particular secret door.
Makes you wonder what they're guarding, though. Right. Moving on, we have the prison of the Neanderthals. It's a reminder that the conflict between the ogres and the Neanderthals extends even within the walls of the ruined monastery.
Even in this place of supposed sanctuary, there's still conflict and struggle. Okay, what's inside the prison?
You'll find 4 Neanderthals, captured by the ogres and imprisoned in this locked and barred chamber. They're desperate for freedom, and if you release them, they'll be eternally grateful, even offering their aid in future encounters. It's a chance to forge an alliance with these peaceful yet powerful creatures.
It's nice to see that not all the encounters have to be hostile. You can choose to be compassionate, help those in need.
And speaking of alliances, we can't forget about the hobgoblins. They have a presence in the monastery as well.
Right. They're not just hanging out in the wilderness.
There's the hobgoblin supply room, filled with weapons, armor, and provisions, all meticulously organized and ready for use.
It's clear they're planning something. But it's interesting that they're so organized, so well supplied. Doesn't really fit the stereotype of chaotic, evil creatures, does it?
That's a good point. It makes them seem more formidable, more like a real threat.
And then, of course, there's the hobgoblin garrison.
Where a group of hobgoblins and goblins stand guard, protecting the entrance to the dungeon levels below the monastery.
The first line of defense against anyone trying to delve into the secrets hidden beneath the surface. So we've explored the surface of the ruined monastery, and it's been quite a journey.
It has, hasn't it? We've encountered danger, intrigue, even a touch of beauty amidst the decay.
But it sounds like the real adventure is just beginning.
You're right. We're about to descend into the dungeon levels, where things get even more dangerous, and the stakes are even higher. All right, so we're finally here, ready to delve into the dungeon levels beneath the ruined monastery.
You know, just thinking about it, I'm already getting a different vibe down here. Less, I don't know, overgrown. More like oppressive somehow.
It's a definite shift in atmosphere. All that decay and overgrowth gives way to this sense of like cold, heavy stone. Like the weight of the hill itself is pressing down on you.
Yeah, I can see that. So what's waiting for us on this first level, dungeon level 1?
This level is described as the stronghold of the goblins and hobgoblins. It's a whole labyrinth of chambers and corridors, all connected and patrolled by, well, let's just say not the brightest bunch.
Ah, so we're talking classic dungeon crawl territory. Low-level threats, but maybe in large numbers.
Exactly. But even with these, shall we say, less formidable foes, the module still manages to give them some personality. Like, take the bugbear's sitting room, for example. It's described as this filthy, smelly chamber with a dying fire and a kettle of, well, questionable stew simmering over the coals.
Sounds appetizing. I'll be sure to pack a lunch.
Good idea. But the real treasure in this room isn't this stew. It's 3 silver goblets hidden under layers of, dried wine and dirt.
Ah, so even in the midst of squalor, there's a chance to strike it rich, or at least get a good cleaning going.
Exactly. Then there are the bugbear's quarters, a locked chamber where thankfully 3 bugbears are sound asleep, a prime opportunity for a stealthy party to, maybe get the upper hand.
Right, but if they're awakened, sounds like it's time to roll for initiative.
Definitely. And if you're looking for a challenge that's, well, not for the faint of heart, there's the torture chamber. No sugarcoating here. This is the real deal. Torture racks, iron maidens, even a bubbling cauldron of oil.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that this world has a dark side. Not all the encounters are going to be lighthearted.
Right. But even in this grim setting, there's a chance for, I don't know, some redemption maybe. The prison cell holds a hapless thief who's been captured by the bugbears and left to rot. Free him, and he'll be eternally grateful, offering his skills to the party for the rest of the adventure.
It's a nice touch that you can choose to be compassionate even in this, dark and dangerous place. Okay, what else is on dungeon level 1?
This cavern filled with the sound of rushing water. A waterfall cascades from a spout in the ceiling, disappears into a hole in the floor. Sounds almost peaceful until you realize there are giant centipedes lurking in the shadows.
So even the most beautiful locations can still hold danger. A good reminder to stay vigilant. What happens if you fall in the hole where the stream disappears?
Let's just say you won't be coming back. It leads to a flooded chamber with no escape.
Duly noted. I'll admire the waterfall from a safe distance.
Probably a good idea. Now let's move on to the foundry. Imagine a large, smoky chamber with multiple fireplaces, each one fueling a forge. Constant activity, clang of hammers against metal, roar of the fires, shouts of hobgoblins and bugbears as they work.
It's like we're seeing the infrastructure of the dungeon. Like, who's running the show down here?
Well, the foundry is overseen by a bugbear and staffed by hobgoblins. But there's also a dwarf who's been forced into labor. Free him, and he'll join your party.
Another opportunity for, an alliance. I like that.
Then there's the goblin arena, a large chamber with a circular pit in the center. And lying in that pit are the bodies of 4 adventurers, pierced by arrows.
Ooh, a reminder that, not everyone makes it out alive. Kind of a sobering thought.
But guarding the bodies of their former masters are 2 loyal wolves, trained as war dogs. Approach them peacefully, offer them food, and they might join your party.
Ha. So even in the face of death and darkness, there's still, loyalty, compassion. It's kind of heartwarming in a weird way.
As we delve deeper into dungeon level 1, the encounters become more challenging, the creatures more formidable. We have the supply room, the dining hall, even the pagan temple, which is this chilling reminder of the dark forces that once held sway over this place.
It sounds like we're getting closer to the heart of the dungeon.
We are. And that brings us to the Hall of the Hobgoblin King, the grand chamber, fit for a ruler, a huge fire burning in the center, tapestries depicting hobgoblin victories on the walls. And seated upon his throne is the Hobgoblin King himself, flanked by his loyal bodyguards.
Sounds intimidating.
He is. He's the final challenge of dungeon level 1. Defeat him, and you'll claim victory over this section of the dungeon. But be warned, he's a powerful opponent.
And no self-respecting dungeon would be complete without a treasure room.
Of course not. The treasure room is hidden behind a secret door and guarded by deadly traps. Inside, you'll find chests filled with gold, silver, platinum, gems, and even magical items.
So we've conquered the first level, faced down the Hobgoblin King, and claimed his treasure. Time for a well-deserved rest, right?
Not quite. There's still more to explore. Lurking beneath is another level, even more labyrinthine and dangerous than the first.
Oh no, not another one.
It's a maze of twisting corridors, patrolled by creatures driven mad by hunger and desperation.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What kind of creatures are we talking about here? Anything particularly memorable?
Well, this is where we encounter a creature that's both fascinating and terrifying. The gelatinous cube. Imagine a massive, translucent blob oozing through the corridors, consuming anything in its path.
Yikes. That's a walking nightmare for sure. What happens if you get caught by it?
Let's just say it won't be pretty. So watch your step on dungeon level 2. One wrong turn could lead to a very sticky end.
Okay, noted. Avoid the gelatinous cube at all costs.
But it's not all doom and gloom down there. Even in this desolate and dangerous level, there are hidden chambers holding ancient treasures, remnants of a time before the dungeon fell into darkness. And if you can navigate the maze and survive the encounters, you might just find yourself escaping back to the surface world.
Escape. But I thought the red dragon was, the ultimate goal, the final challenge.
It is. But there's a twist. Deep within dungeon level 2, there's a hidden passage that leads to dungeon level 3. And it's here, in this volcanic labyrinth, that you'll face the dragon.
So we're not just fighting our way to the dragon, we're essentially trying to escape this dungeon while also hunting this fearsome creature.
Exactly. Dungeon level 3 is a place of fire and shadow. It's a volcanic labyrinth with lava flows and steam vents and all sorts of treacherous terrain.
That's delightful.
It's patrolled by creatures that thrive in the heat and darkness. Lava lizards, steam weevils, giant bats, even a crab spider.
Ah, so it's like a who's who of classic D&D monsters?
And of course, at the heart of this level, in a lair of fire and brimstone, is the young red dragon.
The culmination of horror on the hill. So we've journeyed from the relative safety of Guido's fort to the perilous depths of the hill. We've encountered hobgoblins, ogres, ghouls, giant centipedes, and let's not forget that gelatinous cube.
We've navigated treacherous terrain, explored a ruined monastery, and through it all, we've seen the power of imagination. The way this module brings this world to life with all its dangers and its beauty.
It's like we've been on a journey ourselves, even though we've just been discussing this module. So what does it all mean for you, our listeners? Well, we've given you the map, the guide, the insights. Now it's up to you to imagine the rest.
What choices would you make? What paths would you take? The adventure is yours to create. And who knows, maybe someday you'll be brave enough to run your own game of horror on the hill. Until then, keep exploring, keep imagining, and keep diving deep.
We'll be here ready to guide you on your next adventure.